Hello and welcome to Swiftlessons, and thank you for watching the first segment of our Beginner's Guitar Series. Alright, so before we get playing, I'm going to show you how to tune your guitar. That way you can always sound your best. Let's begin with our E string. You will tune yours to mine. Okay, now that your E string's in tune, we can use it to tune the rest of the guitar. We take our finger, go to the 5th fret of our low E string. That's an A note, so it should match the A string. Okay, for the sake of this practice, I'm going to put myself out of tune and show you how it's done. Alright, so now we are flat. So I'm going to tune that string up to match the 5th fret of my low E string. Almost there. And there we go. A perfectly tuned string. I can repeat that process down the line. My E string tunes my A. My A string tunes my D. My D string tunes my G. Now, to tune my B string, I need to go down to the 4th fret. It's the only time it changes. Alright, that's pretty good. Now, to tune my high E string, I return to the 5th fret, this time on my B string. Let's say if I was sharp. Okay, in session number 1, we went over some basic chords, how to read chord diagrams, and also how to read tablatures. Let's review some of that content.
Okay, so chord diagrams are absolutely essential in being able to learn our favorite songs. You have lines going down, representing our strings. Lines going side to side represent our frets, while numbers represent our fingers. A 0 above a string indicates that that note should be played open, while an X above that string indicates that that note should be silenced. The image that you are now seeing is called a tablature, or tab for short, and like chord diagrams, can be used to learn proper finger placement for chord progressions. Tabs can be used most effectively in learning to play even the most complex melody lines, with lines going side to side representing our strings and numbers representing our frets. It is important to remember that tabs are written upside down, with the lowest note written on the bottom and the highest note written on the top.
Hello, I'm Tom Williamson, co-instructor at Swiftlessons. Today I'm going to be going over a few basic chords and the proper playing technique. Alright, things to keep in mind while you're holding the guitar. You want it nice and snug against your hip. You want your thumb on the back of the neck, your knuckles nice and high to the ceiling, your wrist forward, plenty of space between your palm and the neck, and always pressing hard at all times. Alright, here's a tip. One thing that a lot of beginners do is they tend to tilt their guitar forward a little bit so they can see their fingers. You want to try to avoid that as much as possible. Have your guitar up against your hip. Basically, you want to see only the top of your guitar. And to help you see what you're doing, I suggest playing into a mirror. Alright, the first chord we'll go over is the A major chord. We're going to start with our middle finger on the 2nd fret of our D string. Now our ring finger on the 2nd fret of our G string, and our pinky on the 2nd fret of our B string. Strumming from our A string down, thumb on the back of the neck. To make sure you're playing it correctly, you can pick through each string individually to see if there's any weak spots. The next chord we're going to go over is the D major. To start, we're going to place our first finger, our index finger, on the 2nd fret of the G string. We're going to place our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the high E string. And we're going to place our ring finger on the 3rd fret of the B string. And we're going to strum from our D string down. Pick each one individually, see if there's any weak spots. And whenever you have a chord, make a mental note of it. Try to memorize where your fingers are. Take your hand off, wiggle your fingers around. Try to come back to it. Once you make it, check your chord. Sounds good, take your hand off, wiggle those fingers. Come back. Alright, the next chord is our E major. To play this chord, we're going to start with our middle finger, 2nd fret on the A string, ring finger, 2nd fret of the D string, and our 1st finger on the 1st fret of the G string. We're going to strum all of our strings, go through each one individually. My thumb's on the back of the neck. I'm going to take my hand off, wiggle my fingers around, come back to it. Alright, let's go over some basic strumming. I'm going to strum 8 times on my A chord, 8 times on my D chord, 8 times on my A chord, and then 8 times on my E chord. Alright.
Alright, so let's review one of our favorite exercises. This is one that's excellent for beginners and one that I still use to this day. It's called the spider walk. Essentially, it's just a series of half steps, starting with our E string. We like to start here on the 4th fret, although you can start any place you'd like. We're going to play G sharp and ascend all by half steps. As I go up the frets, I make sure that I'm playing right up on the inside fret, pressing nice and hard with my wrist forward and my knuckles to the ceiling. I then switch strings and repeat the same process. All the way up the neck. Okay, so I'll run through that. Ascending and descending.